Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome from Berlin to our last panel discussion from our big annual conference. Today, it's our topic, Disinformation on Steroids. And as I said, we have our annual conference right now. And because of the situation with the corona pandemic, we split it into 3 panels. So we had yesterday our panel at the same time on Too Big, Too Dangerous on the power of platforms, and yesterday our big panel discussion on the future of the political discourse. And today we want to talk, as I said, about disinformation on steroids, and our annual conference topic is disinformation and media freedom. And as we planned last year our annual topic, we thought that disinformation is a huge topic. That's why we chose it. But we never expected that it will be that important, that we are living, all of us, in a pandemic right now, and we have not only political disinformation, but also health information that's very critical to the lives of all of us. And because of the pandemic, we also chose not to have a conference somewhere here in Germany. We plan to have it in Cologne this year, but because of the travel bans and for the health risk of everyone here, we made it online and split it because we have international guests, and then we have the problem with the time zones. So you will see that our guests are ending the day in Manila, for example. And I will shortly introduce you to our topic, disinformation on steroids. As I said, through this pandemic, a lot of us recognize that we have a huge problem with disinformation, especially on social media platforms. And I can only say for Germany that I think that COVID made it even more important here in my home country to talk about disinformation. But I know that in other countries in this world, we have bigger problems since years, and it's more relevant in everyone's daily life. And no country is immune from disinformation. We talked about it a lot since the elections in 2016 in the US, and we have now again their elections, and we're talking about disinformations from foreign countries, but also within the countries. And we have disinformation on several platforms, not only Facebook and YouTube, but also messengers are heavily used for the spread of disinformation, but also to have Democrats and fighters for civil liberties to connect with each other. So disinformations are around for several ages. It's not a new phenomenon. We have to cope with it since years, since ages. But through the algorithms on the platforms, and because it's so easy to use them to connect with everyone, it's a much bigger problem. And that's why we want to talk about disinformation on steroids. Before I introduce you my amazing panel, I just like to inform you that we have a YouTube channel where the session right now is also streamed, but you can watch also our panels from yesterday there. They are saved on our YouTube channel, and I just put the link in the Zoom chat. And you can't use the Zoom chat, but you can use the question and answer tool for your questions. So we will have like about 45 minutes a discussion with my panelists, and please feel free to ask your questions. I try to put them in our discussion, but especially at the end of our discussion. And as I said, disinformation is a problem all over the world. And I'm very, very happy that we have such an international panel here with 3 amazing guests from all over the world. And I'd like to introduce you to Maria Ressa. Welcome from Manila, from the Philippines. Happy to have you here. Maria is a journalist for nearly 35 years, and she co-founded Rappler and is also still the executive editor and CEO of Rappler. And she endured constant political harassment and arrest by her government, the Philippines government, by President Duterte. And maybe you heard about her because she's an amazing journalist and does amazing work. And she was named as the Time Magazine's 2018's Persons of the Year, and she's among the 100 most influential people of 2019, and she's the Times most influential, or one of the Times most influential women of the century, and won a lot of prizes for her journalism. And I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome, Maria Ressa.
Thanks for having me.
Then we have Maxim Stubenko. He's the editor of the first classical Ukrainian fact-checking project. So hello to Kiev, to the Ukraine. And he's also a fact-checker on a live political TV show, Countdown, at the national TV channel UA First. And he's a lecturer for journalism and is giving a lot of trainings and workshops and lectures, I forgot that, on economic misinformation to various audiences such as public officials, MPs, journalists, and students. And he will be here just for 20 minutes because he has so much to do. And so I introduce you also to his colleague, Julia Jaha. She's an analyst also at VoxCheck, and she's an expert in political science and does a lot of research and activities in international politics. Happy to have you here, both of you.
Hi.
And our fourth guest is Cyriac Gebou. He's the director of innovation at OVH, a social innovation space in Côte d'Ivoire. So our guest from Africa, happy to have you here, Cyriac. And he is also the vice president of the African League of African Bloggers and Activists. And he has a media education project for adults and children in Côte d'Ivoire. And he tries to deliver high quality content on social media as a project against disinformation. And he's also on TV and deals there with a topic on of disinformation on a weekly basis. Happy to have you here, Cyriac. And because we have 3 or 4 guests from 3 different regions in this world, I really like you to introduce us to what's going on in your region, in your country regarding disinformation, which are the channels that are most used to spread disinformation. And I'm also curious if the situation got much worse through the COVID. And maybe Maria, you like to start, and then we go on with Maxime because he has to say goodbye then.
Sure. I would say we're, I don't know where to begin. It's 4 years of this, right? So in 2016, we came out with a weaponization of the internet series. And in that, one of the pieces was about how Facebook algorithms impact democracy. The second piece was the weaponization of the internet. That began a torrent of attacks, what you call exponential disinformation, because the day after we published that, we essentially exposed the propaganda machine in the Philippines, information operations on Facebook. Facebook is our internet. I received the next day, actually it was that evening, an average of 90 hate messages per hour. And, I want to hear from everyone, but, in a short thing in 4 years, this is how democracy dies. What happened was this kind of bottom-up astroturfing. That's you say a lie a million times, lace it with anger and hate, spreads faster than really boring facts on social media. That becomes a fact, right? The lie becomes the fact. I would actually say that Facebook is biased against facts. So in 2016, they seeded the narrative, journalist equals criminal. I was the target. I laughed in 2016, stupidly so. In 2017, so after they did this bottom up, in 2017, top down, in President Duterte's State of the Nation address, he said the same thing. There's the sandwich. And in 2018, the weaponization of the law. 11 cases and investigations against Rappler in about a year. In 2019, I was arrested and I'm going to say like twice within about 5 weeks. And then I had 8 arrest warrants. And then, of course, the trials all began. And in 2020, the trials are still ongoing, even during pandemic. And essentially, I was convicted in a cyber libel case. It's ridiculous. It was a case where the law we allegedly violated didn't even exist for a story I didn't write, edit, or even supervise. So journalist equals criminal in 2016, journalist equals criminal in 2020. And then in the process, you see society pulling apart. I'd say the last thing is COVID-19. The Philippines has had the longest lockdown in the world, probably more security driven than most. We still have a form of lockdown now. It's largely military led. Our pandemic response, President Duterte has appointed former military generals to lead it. So we have some kind of crazy videos that show men in uniform dropping face masks from a helicopter. And of course, what's happened during that time period is a further constriction of our rights. The largest broadcaster, ABS-CBN, was shut down. The last time that happened was in 1972 when Ferdinand declared martial law, and ABS-CBN, the network, was shut down for 14 years. So having said all of that, sorry, doom and gloom, I think that the problem is that we should not let the virus infect democracy. It obviously has, and we need to hold platforms to account.
Thanks a lot for this overview of the Philippines, the situation there. Maxim, maybe you might go on and telling us what's the situation in Ukraine.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Hi, everybody. I will not start with the topic of coronavirus because it's a problem of whole world. And I'll not tell anything about myself because Anne has already told about me even more than I know about myself, I think, but I'm really glad to be on this discussion. So I will make a small introduction where I will walk through the main problems of Ukraine in the context of the disinformation, and then I will, as Anne said before, leave you and give the floor to my colleague Yulia, and she will tell a lot more about these problems. Sorry, sorry, please. So I think the first and the main problem in Ukraine is external. This topic is probably bored all world, but Ukraine is at war with Russia. Some call it hybrid war, but I call it just a war because disinformation approaches are so commonly used used during all wars in all over the world that it has become a classic situation. And therefore, in addition to military actions, we also have a huge problem with disinfo and fakes targeted on Ukraine from Russia, and not only on Ukraine. I think Germany also has this problem, but in Ukraine, it's really huge problem. But the second one is very difficult personally for me because I'm Ukrainian, and this problem is internal problem because our politicians, populism and internal disinformation, all these years, Ukraine has been developing extremely slow because of this problem. If we talk about data, for example, just our organization, in 5 years of work, we have caught our politicians, I think about 8,000 times on a lie. Against 5 years, it's unique statements. Not every of them, but most of them is unique statements. 8,000. And we identify it in 10 main topics in which they lie. And these topics is closely related to reforms and to Ukrainian economics and for our wealth, I think, and our development. And so that's two main problems for us now in Ukraine. But if we're talking about internal problem, we slowly, really slowly, with little steps, we decrease it because of our work. So we fight against politicians live, we fight against populism on different TV shows, on different panel discussion. For example, it's not working at all, but it can, because other people will know about our problem. Slowly, but it do works. And other problems in Ukraine, in my opinion, are derived from these main two problems: internal and external, Russia and Ukrainian politicians. So the third problem that I mentioned on the start of my topic is coronavirus disinfo, but it's a problem all over the world. And I think, and you asked me to tell about platform where disinformation spreading in Ukraine. So in my experience, but maybe Yulia will tell you more deeply in this, but the most common platforms for spreading disinformation in Ukraine is messenger groups. It's Viber and Telegram, closed group in these messengers. Not always closed, but especially closed one. And Facebook. Facebook is very popular now in Ukraine, but I forgot, did I tell you it before? Vokshek is a partner of Facebook in Ukraine, so now we can do something with it. But why I don't name YouTube? Because YouTube, it's a platform where Russia spreading their information on Ukraine, and not only on Ukraine. Because of Ukraine, there's really no Ukrainian content on YouTube. Ukrainian people going for Russian segment of YouTube and for Russia content. This is a state level problem, but truly say we do not have solution right now. So.
Thanks a lot, Maxim. Yeah, it's pretty similar. We have also here a lot of Germans who watch Russia Today on YouTube. Is a German, we're a German-speaking channel. Thanks for introducing us to the situation in Ukraine and Syria. What about Côte d'Ivoire? What's going on there? Is how big is the problem of disinformation in your country, and did it get worse through the COVID? And what are, in your country, the main platforms that are used to spread disinformation?
Okay, thank you, Han, for this question. In my country, especially in Côte d'Ivoire, I want to give you the year situation. The Côte d'Ivoire have some 10 years ago some election crisis, political crisis, but some people now have many problems about the information. Many people want to give some information, but they don't give the good information, because we want to give some political information by my guy is do that, and it's a big problem, because they don't make some verification. She just want to give some information because he want to put some interest of one people. But with COVID-19, there are many things. For example, some people say if you go if you rest under the sun, you can have some COVID. Many fake news shared by the people because they don't go to verify the information, and it was very dangerous because our our situation is so special. The crisis make a difference between one people and done people. But if you give some information and you don't verify that, we can create some crisis about two people or around the people. I want to take one information in Côte d'Ivoire. Last the 6th August, the president say he want to present himself to the next election, but some manifestation will be on the country, and the part of the president say something, the opposition say another thing, but the citizen, I am the citizen, what information we can take, because when it come from but this part of the population and another part, but we are on middle, and you don't know if it's true or false. But now with this situation, we say to the people, please take some time to verify the information, because it's very important. The interest here is not one interest about one people, but is an interest about one country. One country is Côte d'Ivoire. We are not another country. The platform is main used in Côte d'Ivoire is Facebook, WhatsApp, and Telegram. In Telegram, the people go to Telegram, what is sensitive information was very sensitive. And when going to WhatsApp, because it's easy to share some information to WhatsApp, and in going to Facebook, because it's the most popular platform we are using in Côte d'Ivoire. And then they're using SMS, because in my country there are some regions that are not internet zone, but you can share some SMS, but the people send you some SMS to give to share some disinformation or to another information. And the main actor that spreads disinformation in my country, the first person which I like to mention is the politician. The politician make many fake news. After that, there are some journalists and the citizen. The citizen spread some information, and that about what question again, I think is all for now. After I can say something.
Okay, thank you, Cyriac. And it's interesting that nearly all of you, I'd like to hear from you, Maria, what's the situation in the Philippines, that you also mentioned messenger services as a huge problem. That's very interesting for me, because I just wrote a paper for the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation on messenger services and the spread of disinformation there, because I wanted to show the Germans that these platforms are a huge problem. And now we see also in Germany through the pandemic that also here disinformation is spread on messenger services. And what I didn't find out, but it came to my mind, that we here in Germany don't talk enough about the medium in which a disinformation is spread. So I think we talk here in Germany too much, or assume too much, that disinformation is in text and not in visuals, like videos or memes or charts or even pictures. So I like to hear from you. Do you talk in your work about the medium of a disinformation which is shared, and what do you think is it important to talk about it? And do you also think that visuals are a much bigger problem, because they are touching our emotions and not our ratio? And if you want to read a text, you have to click on a link mostly first of all and read it and understand it a bit. A picture is like it's coming to your mind directly. What do you think about it? Maybe Maria, you might start.
I think there are 2 points that I would put here. The first is to look at the design of the social media platforms, which actually take all of our data, right? Like we put that stuff in, and then machine learning pulls out, creates a model of us. If you haven't seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix, that shows you how it happens. And this is where it connects to the business model. What it does is it takes our vulnerable moment to a message. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in. And the monetization model takes that vulnerable moment and sells it, whether that is to a government or to a company, right? Advertising. This is not advertising the way we used to know it. This is behavior modification. And your question is medium. Look, we keep forgetting cell phones is already collecting data about us. So the medium for me is your cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone that collects the data. On top of that is the social media platforms. And the last part is how do they nudge our behavior, the feedback process, the algorithms that then manipulate us. And this is all, there's a book that just was published September 15th by an MIT professor. He's also an entrepreneur, Sina Noral, where he takes a look at this kind of, he calls it the technology trifecta, and then shows exactly how this manipulates us. So it's not just, I think too much of the conversation focuses only on the content. The content is like playing a whack-a-mole game. And then the problem is the design of the platforms themselves. And in the Philippines, it's Facebook. Facebook essentially is our internet. 100% of Filipinos on the internet are on Facebook. And what I'll just end with this is the second point, which is how do social media platforms build division in our society into their design? They do it because they all, in order to grow, which is their main optimization, the main goal is to grow, right? That's why Facebook and WhatsApp together combined is more than 2.7 billion accounts, right? So think about it, and I'll put it in the context of the Philippines. You can put it in the context of Trump and the US, but this is Duterte in the Philippines, where at the beginning in 2016, we all agreed on facts. And this is pro-Duterte, this is anti-Duterte. We were still in the middle. But because the recommendation engine of any social media platform you're on right now recommends friends of friends, the pro-Duterte people are pushed further right because they start to form their echo chamber. They're only listening to themselves, they become more extreme. The same thing is happening with the anti-Duterte, so they move further left, right? And so what you're seeing is as Facebook or whatever platform grows, the division is built in. And then in addition to this, and Germany has seen this, the far right in almost all of our countries, we've seen in our investigations links of the pro-Duterte group to alt-right groups in Canada, Russian disinformation, and alt-right groups in Europe. So this is kind of the snaking network that's going on as the social media platforms, by design, splinter our societies. Sorry, I'm very geeky about it, only because we really have to stop talking about content only. It's not about just making you click on that. It is about changing your behavior. And then when you influence operations, Russian disinformation, right? This was a massive experiment. Ukraine in the middle of it in 2014. And their end goal was not to just make you believe one thing. The end goal was to make you doubt everything so that the most powerful voice can control the public. Sorry, this is one of those things. I think we're at an existential moment globally.
Don't be sorry. That's so important that you mentioned that, and thank you for that. I think we can talk later a bit also about the algorithms and the design. And I also really recommend the Netflix show, like The Social Dilemma. Watch it. I did it on Sunday evening. Julia, maybe you can tell us a bit about and the medium on which disinformation is spread in Ukraine. Maxim also already said that you use messengers heavily next to Facebook.
Yes, I think I will just continue a bit on Maria's idea of amplification, because it's really urgent in Ukraine. what we see in our work is that there are a lot of fake accounts and no one does anything to them. And like people, like some real people, they leave the posts, for example, against the wearing of masks. And then the bots and these fake accounts come into comments, and then real people, they do not understand whether there is some support for that, like real support, or just the support of fake accounts. And the social platforms, they do nothing about that. And the thing is that it's really obvious that those accounts are fake and they violate the community standards because they don't have Ukrainian or Russian names. Like they have some Ukrainian name and Latin American surname, like which is really, it's like it would be exceptional to have that in Ukraine. Yeah, that's one point, considering the amplification of disinformation in echo chambers. And considering the media, well, yeah, we have disinformation spread in messengers. Like Telegram is like really a black hole because no one can control what is going on there. And we had the case, for example, when the addresses of COVID patients, of COVID people who have the disease were leaked into Telegram, and that really can pose a social danger because with this polarized society, people can just come and say stay at home and do not go out. And we had such cases when one woman was just kept in her house because she received warnings from the other people that like if you go out we will kill you, or like we'll do something to that. So that's really important considering the safety and what the disinformation can do to us. The other thing is about the form, the content of this disinformation is that what we actually can do nothing about that is when people do not say something explicitly, but we all understand what they mean. Because they just give the hints, and the fact checkers who mark the information on that, like on Facebook, for example, they cannot mark it as a disinformation because they will, like, people can claim that the fact checkers actually manipulate the ideas, and we cannot let that happen. So that is a real danger regarding the context when something is not said explicitly, but it is dangerous.
Yes, thank you. That's very, very important. And I will touch upon it later, but Cyriac, what about Côte d'Ivoire? Do you talk about the medium a lot and what you think about visuals regarding disinformation?
Okay, about Medium, I want to say here the content is most some image and video because is easily to share on the smartphone, and you can share easily, and it might make a buzz. But some text sometimes, but there are many people doesn't go to school, but is very easy for these people to look at some video and some images than the text. But sometimes the medium but on the image and the video, there are, you can manipulate some people. You can take some for example, you can take some image about one personality, and you can transform the text with the same during perhaps in on a meeting, but is so current here to see this support to is shareable on the smartphone, like I say video, text, and but I find some people here like emotion is like it's so emotive. But if your content makes give some emotion, you see your content shareable without verification.
Thanks you for the insight of Cote d'Ivoire. And Julia just touched a bit upon like fake accounts on Facebook that are not deleted. And maybe some of you just read the, I think last week published article by BuzzFeed with the headline, "I have blood on my hands," which is about a memo that got leaked by a former employee of Facebook, and she was responsible to find or detect as a data analyst an unauthentic behavior, whatever that may be. I think that's not even really defined what unauthentic behavior is. And she said that she has blood on her hands because she didn't have enough time to detect all this unauthentic behavior, especially in countries out of the US and Europe. So she said she's a lot of irresponsible in a way because she didn't have the time and manpower in her team. She was nearly alone to do something against disinformation campaigns in Myanmar, for example, or the Philippines, or in somewhere in South America. And what do you think when you hear about that, and especially that Facebook is just focusing on Europe, maybe also just Western Europe and the US? Do you expect more from Western countries on like pressuring Facebook to do something against this? Please start, Maria. You want?
Yeah. So, you know, Rappler is a Facebook partner. We have worked very close. I mean, Rappler was born on Facebook, right? In 2012, we actually started as a Facebook page. And if its search functions had been better, we may not have set up a website. So I would say that we know its best and we know its worst because we live on social media, right? Our first year and a half or so, we grew exponentially. This is, so 2012, this is before, I think 2014 is a landmark year. It's the year of the Ukraine. It's the year of the election of Modi in India. 2014 is a landmark year. And then by 2015, instant articles was introduced by Facebook, right? So instant articles, I think, is the gateway. When news groups all came on board, Facebook got us on board, and yet the algorithms did not change. So facts were thrown into the same mix as, you know, the joke that your father told you or your friend told you. What Sophie said in that Facebook memo, she's no longer with Facebook, is not a surprise. In our partner, so we have to sign like triple NDAs on many of these things. So there are no details, but I can say we're a fact-checking partner of Facebook. We have long pushed for action in our countries. We know that as of 2018, before Mark Zuckerberg testified in Congress, that Myanmar had already gone through and seen Facebook-fueled genocide, right? And that is a special group from the UN came in. It was led by an Indonesian, Marzuki Darusman. He used to head the Commission on Human Rights there. And then Facebook sent an independent group in and it verified what they said. So they're aware of this. And that was part of the reason they created the integrity unit that Sophie belonged to. Look, genocide has already happened. And yet, who was held accountable? And what changes were actually made? I would say that the market forces actually push Facebook down the same path it's on. Because when it does something that is good for the users, the market punishes Facebook, right? So the incentives aren't aligned. Having said that, the fact that this leaked, I think the biggest change here is are Facebook's own employees who are seeing all of the things that are happening. I congratulate Germany. I met your justice minister in her first few months, and this is when you were just putting that unpronounceable law in place. Please pronounce it for me. It's not because you were the first, right?
It's called the Netzwerkdurchsetzungsgesetz, and it's just one word. That's what we can do in Germany. But we are very critical with this one. But we can have another discussion, or maybe we should. We said this also yesterday on this.
Yeah, but you know what? It's okay to not get it right. I think the right thing is to try. And I think Germany is a step ahead because you have seen what propaganda can do to a society. And this is the biggest problem. These decisions made in Silicon Valley are made for Western countries that have systems, that have institutions of governance. But the global South, which is where we belong, where our institutions are extremely frail, where corruption is endemic, where there are now homegrown industries that are servicing the region and the world from our country, right? The Cambridge Analytica whistleblower called us the petri dish, where they experimented with tactics of manipulation. And if it worked here, they ported it over to you, to the West, right? So we were only the guinea pigs. So I think Facebook has known this. They know the impact. It's not just the Philippines, because there's a brutal drug war where tens of thousands, according to human rights groups, have been killed. They were the first targets because we questioned that. But it is also Sri Lanka. It is also Bangladesh. It is also every country. I think here, again, the Ukraine is very special because you're first, first in the sense of there is the connection to Russian disinformation. It was proven, and the sad irony is that it is American companies that have allowed the kind of disintegration. I mean, this is the death of democracy because, and here's the last part I'll say about what Sophie said in her memo. Blood on her hands is only about the people who have been killed. Now imagine if it brings in a decade of fascism. This is the precipice that we're standing on because on the 75th year, the UN General Assembly starts tonight, right? And on the 75th year, when the UN, you had Bretton Woods, you had the UN Human Rights, Declaration of Human Rights, you had NATO, all of these things came because the world had to come together to prevent humanity from doing the worst to humanity. Well, we're at this precipice again. It is happening. It is happening online. Another atom bomb has gone off, and the world has to come together to fix this because it's literally, it can herald in a decade of fascism. We're certainly seeing that happen now.
That's wonderful. The world has to come together. I just wrote it down for me. You're so right. We have to come together, and that's a good start, even though we have just 1 hour and 20 minutes left. But Julia, I like to hear your opinion. So is Facebook focusing too much on also Western Europe and the US? What do you think?
I think they're just not doing enough. And a part of that is about the language. I think all their technologies are around English or German or French, but they're not about Ukrainian or Russian. Because like in Ukrainian or Russian, like when we search for the word, it gives us the exact correspondence of that word. But the same word, it just changes the endings, for example, right? And then we cannot look for that changing. The other thing which also happened is that people who spread the fake information, they just insert the other symbol in the word. So it relates to the previous, what I have mentioned. It's like when people hint, but the lies cannot be detected by the search engines. So like the reply to your answer would be yes, they are not doing enough because Ukraine is the gate to the Western world, and like everything which is in Ukraine is going to be spread to the Western Europe and then to the America.
Thank you. So Syriac, Cote d'Ivoire is French-speaking country. So do you have the same problems there, or is Facebook doing enough in your country?
Yes, there are. I have a log to make a Facebook trust partner about some information, but I want to join Maria. Last years, Facebook create some panel, some discussion about to create this Facebook oversight board. Is some independent without Facebook employees to make some suggestions, some things to Facebook to say, in my country, there are some cultural problems. And for Facebook, if you say in my language, there are a root language, a root language, you say, if you want to say to die, is not the same thing when you want to shoot someone. If I say I want to die today, is say, for example, I want to do a big thing today. But for Facebook, die is die. But when you make the panel with discussion, I say no. If I put in die in my country, it's not the same thing we put in die in Myanmar. But you can take this cultural position to say to your algorithm, if we are in this region, die subject to the guy you can keep discard the information or keep the information. But he put this thing on the algorithm. If you on the Facebook group, if someone say die, it sends some notification to administrator to say, do you want to keep this one or to discard this one? And you can't make the change. But in another country, die is die. Is the robot can leave your message. And in my country, I think now I see 2 days ago, Facebook want to create a regional DEX in Nigeria for the next year. Is good for us because now some Facebook employee we have with contact lives in Dubai or lives in Great Britain, in England, but is not in our environment to know the people, to know what. But last 2 years ago, Facebook make some workshop in the region, some partnership with the fact checker like Africa Check and Togo Check and another fact checker on the region, because his platform, there are many fake news diffused on the platform. But now when you put some information about, and the fact checker make a fact checking about this information, you receive now some information to say this information was is fact checked by this institution, this enterprise, and this information is wrong. But I find, but she can make another thing, because for us it's so important to sensibilize the people, and the platform of Facebook is a good platform to sensibilize many people.
Thank you. And yes, the language is a huge problem. I just read an article on Vice, I think, about the situation in Ethiopia, that there also a genocide might happen fueled by hate comments on Facebook. And Facebook does not even have its community standards in some Ethiopian languages. So they just have 100 moderators in whole Africa, and you have some more languages over there than just English and French, for example. And yes, but because we are running out of time, we have just 12 minutes. I'd like to start with a question from one of our guests here, because I also like to talk about solutions. So we have to line out the problem, and which is really, really complex. It's not just as easy as some might thought. I think we were able to give a little bit of an impression of this. But Arif Nizami, he asked, what are the best tools to train development professionals or journalists on fact checking? And Cyriac, you have some ideas, or your project is on helping people to detect disinformation. Maybe you can start and try to give us an idea of what we can do to dismantle disinformation.
Okay, thank you. In my country, I launched some projects for help some young and children to have the good information and to fact check some information. In this project, we want to learn to them to have some critical vision and to critical mindset. The first thing I say when I start my course is all thing in internet is not net, is not clear, is not good. When you say something, ask why this information is on internet. If you ask this information, you make some research. And when you make some research, you say this why some people put this information, because all people have some interest. But this interest is personal interest or community interest. It's so important to know that. If you know that, you saw why these people put something on internet, and you can ask to another people. I see something on the internet is true or false. It's good to ask themselves if it's true or false. And after that, we want to train this young, and I want to see in the next years some critical citizen, the responsible side citizen. We share the trust information and not a fake news or disinformation.
Thank you. So Julia, VoxCheck is a fact-checking organization. I'd like to know if you think your work helps. I hope it, but I also think sometimes, like, if I just Google the information, do I really need fact-checking organizations? Or maybe you can tell us why fact-checking is so important, even though I have the internet to check everything.
Well, people just don't. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just stubborn in their opinion, and they have this opinion and they cannot change it. And I think we can do nothing with these people. I think it just depends on the future generations, which we can bring up with the critical thinking. And that's what we try to do. We try to knock and to shout out to those people who are in doubt, and to explain that you may not trust us, but we give you the sources. You can do it yourself. And that's what we basically do.
Thank you. Maria, do you have any ideas or recommendations, especially as a journalist? Because when we look in the world, the trust in journalism is also decreasing all over the world, also here in Germany and in UK. What kind of concepts do you have to give people more trust in work like yours?
I think two ideas, right? The first is, please understand that the problem that the social media platforms have created is a thinking fast problem. Meaning, Daniel Kahneman is this Nobel Prize winner. He said human beings think in two ways: thinking fast or thinking slow. Thinking fast is emotional, it's instinctive, you don't think, right? That's what it is. And thinking slow is rational, thoughtful. This is the process of democracy. The thinking fast part, which is what the social media platforms, and here's the biggest problem: journalists are no longer the gatekeepers. The tech people are the gatekeepers. And while they've taken the money and the audience, they've abdicated responsibility for the public sphere. So the first step is, look, again, we are fact-checking partner of Facebook because we need to do that to be able to see the networks of disinformation so we can see the recidivists. So the first step is we need to find a thinking fast solution. That means tech. After that, while that is happening, while we demand laws, which is why I said thank you, Germany, while it's the far from perfect, Europe is leading the pack here in terms of its GDPR. Again, far from perfect because you're too focused on content. Stop thinking content alone. Start thinking tech, right? So that's the first is, and I really completely always appeal to Silicon Valley, to the tech people, to have enlightened self-interest, because it is our future on the line. The second is, once you have that, please make sure the journalists survive, because the tech platforms are taking the advertising that used to go to news organizations. So the business model is basically dead. And with COVID, that could seal in death for news organizations. And you need that because journalists protect the public sphere. Journalists hold power to account. we have a system of standards and ethics that give us guidelines and give the public the solutions for how we hold power to account. And then finally, the third is you need the journalists so you have the facts. Because if you don't have facts, you can't have truth. If you don't have truth, you can't have trust. If you don't have any of these things, you don't have democracy. So those are the three things. Tech, deal with the tech. The second is journalism. So, and then finally, the third is, can we bring back civic engagement? Where is every person in the democracy? Where are the network of networks in the real world who will protect democracy? Because that's what we need right now.
Thank you so much, Maria. And because we have just 5 minutes left, and I'm here at the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation, and we try to support the political discourse and democratic actors all over the world. I always like to ask my guests, because you're the experts, that's why you're here, to give some wishes to me on what we should focus on, and what should I focus on here in my work in the Global Themes Unit for it and responsible for digitalization and innovation. What should we focus on? What should we do next? How can we help you? Do you have any ideas that you want to tell me? So yeah, maybe we can work in the future together. So some ideas for me. All of you, who wants to start?
I am the gentleman. I give the word to a woman first.
Yule, you want to? I can go. So we don't waste that. So for me, I think, please, 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 you live in Europe. You have more say than us in the global South, i.e. they care. Well, you're now caught, right? Facebook has said that if some of the things that Europe wants, it doesn't pull back, that it would take Facebook out. So it's a game of chicken, right? But I think the first is, going back to Sinan Aral's book, he pulls out 4 different things: money, code, norms, and laws. Money, the business model. Do you really want your data, your personal data gathered by companies, and then your behavior sold, your ability to be manipulated? Do we want these markets to continue? This is a problem that we are all facing all around the world. There's also a monetary value to that. I think the second is, the code itself. It is like building an atom bomb. Data is not the new oil, it's plutonium. A Canadian businessman who was behind BlackBerry said that. So do you really, what do we do? Do we put this atom bomb in the hands of who? And what do we do if people don't realize they're being manipulated? I will say the one reason I think that Westerners, Americans, and sometimes Europeans, you will say, oh, I can't be manipulated. Oh, I'm too smart to be manipulated. This is behavior modification. That's the goal. They take human behavior and they determine the best way to optimize the behavior they want from you. So I guess I'll just end with this one thing. Please look at the platforms as behavior modification systems, and we are Pavlov's dogs. What steps do we need to take next?
Thanks a lot, Maria. Who likes to go on?
I think I will just end up with the thoughts about fake accounts, because it's really interesting how the social platforms are going to deal with that. Are they going to make us all put the verification sign against our name, or they just continue to go on with this, a lot of fake accounts, and just taking down randomly some networks? What is the solution to that? And is it really okay to put a verification sign against all of our names if we go that way? Is it safe to provide the ID for the verification to the companies?
Okay, thank you. Cyriac, any ideas of you? What should we as a foundation focus on with our work?
Yeah, I think you can create some MOOC for to help some people to know about disinformation and fake news. You can create it this platform, and also you can organize some hackathon about disinformation around the world, because this morning I want to take this mic to say thanks to one person, to the two person who manage this panel, Maria and the Ukraine guy, because if you can make together some people around the world to speak on the same thing, is disinformation. And when you finish, it's possible to create, for example, a white book to share it to another person to know about the disinformation about in the country, in the Philippines, in Ukraine, in Cote d'Ivoire, and another country. You can bring another person would not hear today, but to make a one things you can share it on the world in the many language, because you can say there are not something on Ukrainian language, but you can share to the language of the people to participate to this project. This is some idea when I can share today, and thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and that fits perfectly to the words of Maria, like the world needs to come together. And thank you for joining me here online in our Zoom from all over the world. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed the discussion. It was way too short. We have so much work to do, and even though it was our annual topic, disinformation and media freedom for 2020, we definitely will work on this topic because this is so important. And as you said, Cyriac, I really think we will go on and bring together people all over the world. We did some hackathons in specific regions with the Friedrich-Naumann Foundation, but yes, we should definitely work together, because that's what the good thing of the internet is. What I always say, it connects all of us, and I think that's great. That's so important. But we have also different several problems, but we should work on this all together. And yeah, I'm happy that you will join our fight for a better world, for a better internet. And thanks a lot for your time, Maria Ressa, Julia Zaha, and Maxim Stubenko, who just left us, and Cyriac Wu. Thank you and goodbye, wherever you are.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.